it's been a long time since January 6th, almost a year actually. And the effort to track down and provide legal consequences for those who broke into the Capitol, and some of which tried to kill cops and others wanted to murder the vice president or Nancy Pelosi. They certainly wanted to overturn the results of an election, has been a large ongoing process. It's actually been described as the largest prosecutorial undertaking in America's history, since already 700 plus people are facing charges. Now, there's still people that will be tracked down. That is still an ongoing process. And many of the people who are facing charges have not yet finished their legal process, but some have. And so we can actually learn a little bit about how this process is going. As of right now, only about 1/3 of the people who accepted responsibility for misdemeanor charges received prison sentences. So a lot of them are facing misdemeanor charges. And if they do that, there's a lot of probation that's going around basically. More than half of the 71 rioters who were sentenced already this year avoided jail time. But the majority of those defendants were only facing a maximum sentence of 6 months even to begin with. 5 defendants have pleaded guilty to obstructing an official proceeding or assaulting, resisting or impeding officers with a dangerous weapon. Both of those are felonies with a 20-year maximum sentence. So that's where the most serious stuff is gonna come in, is the people who are clearly on film trying to murder police officers. Of the 63 rioters sentenced on misdemeanor charges, only 23 received any jail time. That those sentences range from 2 weeks to 6 months. On average, they spent about 51 days in jail. So I don't know, what do you make of that? Does that seem like what you would have expected? Does it seem like enough?
The most frustrating thing for me about the Capitol insurrection is that I feel this instinct to come up with new arguments for how right-wing extremists are bad. And I should just have to point back to that day. That, I mean, there's plenty of shootings that happened. There was a right-wing extremist who ended up shooting people in Denver this week. But like, watching the news, watching the right-wing messaging sphere, what they've done is repeated so many things that are far less egregious than having an entire mob motivated by liars storm the citadel of democracy in America. Something that these folks wearing "Make America Great Again" hats on think, the thing that they're clamoring against was actually set up by the system that allows for free and fair elections in America, while their own party is completely cutting off who can vote. And even Rand Paul, the libertarian hands-off guy, admits that he himself doesn't want everyone to vote. And I have to keep every day, I'm like, oh, what's a new story to talk about to kind of build out this, what I've learned, and see a new incarnation of it. But I shouldn't have to. Whereas everybody else is telling you that what happened that was insane wasn't that bad. And when we see people being like, all right, you can go, you were just there, it's fine, don't go to jail for it. And at the same time, someone who has like a 1/16th of an ounce of weed in their pocket goes to jail for, or someone who stole a Slim Jim from a convenience store goes to prison for a bunch of years. And that person gets to go home and be fine. Like that, it's hard for me to kind of regroup and figure out how best to proceed and not feel crazy.
Yeah, and that's been a process that I think has been ongoing like throughout the year. We're about to hit the 1-year anniversary, and part of the reason we feel crazy is because it seems so abundantly clear what happened and why it's bad. But for all that we've made videos and tried to persuade people, Tucker Carlson, with a much bigger audience, has spent the entire year telling people that it simultaneously wasn't bad, but if it was bad, it was just the FBI that was being bad. And there was definitely no white supremacists. Don't listen to what they said or the clothes that they wore. There was no violence, and we're never gonna show you the video, so you won't know that there was. Like the whole thing it's like the most thorough gaslighting about a political event that I can remember in recent history.
Yeah, and all that plus yelling, "Hang Mike Pence." And those people want us to believe that the biggest threat to American democracy is kind of tracing the legacy of racism and disenfranchisement. History and teaching history is the big enemy.
Yeah, that's true. So look, in terms of like any individual random person, like the guy who smoked weed and was in Merkley's office, like I hate that. I didn't like that. I don't like why he did it or anything. But do I think that he should be in jail for 5 years? No, I don't think. Like I'm obviously angry at the mob, both that mob and the mobs to come that I know are out there waiting to be told what to mob about. But it also seems weird that there's 700 people who are facing charges, and they're all the regular people from January 6th. Because what they did is a crime. They were in an office they weren't supposed to. That's a crime. Trying to overturn an election because you don't like the result apparently is not a crime. And that's the thing that really bothers me the most about this and that makes me feel crazy is it is indisputable that in 30 different ways, the outgoing administration tried to stop the legal transfer of power. That is supposed to be this line in the sand that America will never cross, the line that differentiates democracies from countries that fall to dictatorship. They tried to do it, and we can't even get the country to agree that that happened, or if that it happened, that it's a bad thing. And instead, what we're supposed to get is some guys get misdemeanors or whatever. And that's the solution to that problem.
And there's a bunch of indicators, just to reinforce your point, like if you want the barometer of what Hollywood producers are willing to greenlight. I took a bunch of meetings, pitching shows, and anything remotely political. This is last year, before January 6th. Anything remotely political was like hands off. I was like, what politics shows have you guys produced? And this one company was like, well, we did this kind of stuff that no one would disagree with, and that can bring us together. And that is that tracing the anomaly in America compared to all other countries, that we have a peaceful transfer of power. That was the thing. And now they're trying to normalize something that completely turns that on its head. Like even Hollywood was like, peaceful transfer of power, no one's ever gonna step on that.
Yep.
And if they do, we're well past, reason and care.
Yeah.
But we're past it, and they're trying to. Everybody's instinct is to eventually normalize because you're living through it. Just look at COVID and this.
Yep. And by the way, we have a solid year and a half of the occasional question to Trump, like, "Hey, if you lose, you're gonna transfer power," and he would not say yes. And we would say, "Hey, that seems bad," and then we'd get yelled at that we're being hysterical or whatever. Why are you freaking out? Obviously he's gonna do it, you idiot radicals. Obviously he's gonna transfer power. How did that work out? How did that work out? God, it's great to be told that you're crazy and then see it come true in real life. Okay, so final thought?
Manchin, same thing happened. The media they needed so badly to think that Manchin, was on the side of Biden the whole time. And as we're like, he didn't promise that he would vote for this. He didn't promise. Same way Trump didn't promise he wouldn't, undermine democracy. Yeah. And at the end, same thing happened in both situations. They didn't lie. You just couldn't see the truth.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.